really thankful to have you all here. It's like seeing family members, honestly. It really is. And I won't get emotional, but it is like seeing family. I think of each and every one of you as a member of my family, and we could not have done this work without you. So I am going to turn it over to Brian. No. Oh, I'm going to introduce him. Great. Excellent. Okay. So it's my privilege and honor to introduce County Executive Meyer, who is going to kick us off today. We have like a bunch of different things happening this morning, which is kind of how the Hope Center rolls. The only thing I'd like to say is that if you have a minute, 30 minutes, we can give you a really nice tour of the building before you leave if you haven't seen the building yet, because there's a lot of things happening here, and we'd love to have you. I'd also like to thank some of our participants that are here today. Miss Flowers, give her a hand, there she is. Miss Mastrocovi in the red, the beautiful red, there she is. And some of our folks around the table. So with no further ado, I'm going to introduce County Executive Meyer, who really was, we can have ideas, out of the box ideas, try to think of things that are kind of like the wildest dream. Like Nicole, I think we had a wild dream to buy a hotel, but never in our wildest dreams would someone actually believe that we could do it. And that really solely, no matter what we say and the hard work that's done by everybody here, without the support and belief, and without saying to people when we first opened and we were terrified, don't let perfection be the enemy of the good, which was our model, we wouldn't have done this. And also, like, don't worry about all the county, not rules, but, county stuff, just open this thing. Luckily, we had CARES Act funding, which allowed us to do all of that. But he really was, without his support and without county council's support, this wouldn't have happened. And, there's nothing like political will. So I just want to say, to thank him and also introduce him to give some remarks. So Matt Meyer.
Give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you, everyone. As Carrie referenced, about 3 years and 4 months ago, she and someone named Renee Beeman came to my office with a crazy idea that they've since told me nobody else would sign on to, and that was to purchase a hotel in the middle of COVID and turn it into a center of hope. There are a lot of decisions that elected officials have. Very often, the decision is to send resources to the haves rather than the have-nots, the politically powerful. And I hope you all recognize that because of your hard work, we can stand here today and say over 3,600 Delawareans who didn't have housing have spent at least one night in this facility. 360 some families, I think 367 families to date, 367 households have come into this facility. And because of the hard work of so many of you, in so many ways, 367 families have moved out into sustainable permanent housing. Now, you may have heard some detractors out there. There are people saying who told me on day one, this isn't gonna work, you're gonna let people stay in the hotel for free, how are you gonna pay for it? Who are still saying that into the future, this place is not gonna succeed. What I want you to know is that when we came into this place, I wasn't sure if it was gonna succeed. If you heard what I said, we have enough money to operate this place for a year or two. And beyond that, I don't know what's gonna happen. But many of you in this room, and many of you not in this room, stood up. You raised your hand. You came here. You worked hard. You volunteered your time, contributed money, contributed resources. The staff that works here, the partners that work here. Every time I come and I just watch, I get that little lump in my throat, a tear in my eye. Because what people say about, it's 9 to 5, you come into government work, you come as soon as you clock in, you clock out. I don't know what happens in this place, but as soon as people come in and are working with the clients here, things change. And it makes a difference, and it's made a huge difference. we're very fortunate that looking forward, so we acquired this place as an emergency housing in the middle of COVID. I think most people know the story. Hopefully most of you saw the award-winning documentary, Emmy award-winning documentary. It was an emergency, and we acquired it as an emergency during COVID. If you asked me in December 2020, and you asked, I think even Carrie, she were honest with you, beyond 2022, we weren't sure what we're gonna do. Obviously, in the last year or two, we've been starting to think about how do we make this a permanent fixture for vulnerable populations? How do we make sure it's affordable long into the future? When none of us are in our current roles, when the next generation and generations after that, how do we make sure that this is still a center of hope? So we wanted to bring people together and talk a little bit about that. Just to talk numbers, there's a sheet that I think we gave everyone. But finances are a concern, and we want to make sure that we take care of this place. And I'm proud to tell you now that when we started in 2020, we said we had probably enough money to get us to 2022. Now we safely have enough money to get well into 2026. So we are well sustained and well taken care of. Give yourselves a round of applause. I know that's thanks to the work of a lot of hard people, a lot of hard work of a lot of hardworking people in this room. It's not easy. The funding situation is challenging, particularly with public funds, but it's incredible, and I'm overwhelmed every single day by the number of individuals and groups who come forward simply to help. Even later today, I hope it's not a secret, Brian, that we're gonna be, Wegmans is coming forward as a partner to help. You have the numbers in front of you, but in fiscal year 2022, to our surprise, we had a surplus of almost $2 million. We spent about $5 million and brought in revenue of over $7 million. Yeah, give a round of applause for the surplus. Thank you. The following year, we had revenues of $3.8 million and expenses of $3.5 million. And in the current fiscal year and the next 2 fiscal years, we project about $4 million of revenue and expenses. So as we look to the future, it's time for us to revisit the original mission and engage with all of you to ask ourselves, what is the long-term vision of the Hope Center? What do we want the long-term vision to be? We've learned in the past 3 years, 2 months, and 5 days that our definition of emergency shelter has changed. Almost every household needs more than 24 days. When we started the shelter in the emergency, as I know Kim and Carrie remember well, we said, you can stay here as long as you want. You can stay here as long as you want. Once the federal funding started to slow down, we said, okay, we need to put some parameters around this. And based on the funding sources we have a 24-day stay for those that come through the State Service Center. Now, I know a lot of people in this room look and say, 24 days. So you've been chronically homeless 6-7 years on the streets, and you come in, you have 24 days to turn everything around. There are a lot of services upstairs, right? But I don't know if anyone can look in the eye and say we can solve all these problems in 24 days. So we've been working hard to push that using other funding sources, including county funding sources, to 90 days. And we want to talk about that and say, what should it be? And how do we access the funding to make sure that a quality emergency shelter with quality wraparound services is what the Hope Center will continue to be. We also know that many people are still unable to access the Hope Center. It's something I hear a fair amount at community centers, at community meetings. We still have up to 15 referral agencies. We've developed unique partnerships to increase access. But we know some are still not able to access these critical services. We saw that this summer when the city of Wilmington providing funding for us to Uber street-level unhoused folks in Wilmington to the Hope Center. More than 10 people came through that unique partnership with Uber. People know of our other partnerships. Christiana Care for years, Dr. Golden, I hope you don't mind me stealing a little bit of your thunder, for years has had a problem where they don't, when someone's in the hospital and they're physically healthy enough to be released, if they don't have anywhere to go, Christiana Care doesn't want to just push them out into the street. But when they keep them in rooms, you can imagine the tremendous cost of holding people for days, nights, weeks in hospital rooms that they don't really need. And through a unique partnership with Christiana Care, instead of holding them in the hospital rooms, many of them can now come to the Hope Center. That's tremendous savings for Christiana Care. During Hurricane Ida, individuals flooded out. Just sudden emergency housing need were able to come here. Refugees from Ukraine, from Afghanistan with nowhere to go have spent nights here. Even a bus that came from New York City with these migrants, right, that they're sending up from Texas and Florida, and what I think is ridiculous public policy. A family ended up at Christiana Mall and had nowhere to go, and we found them a safe place, and within a few weeks, thanks to the great work of Lisa, Kim, and the amazing team here, found them a permanent place to stay. We know some people need more time and can benefit from creating permanent supportive housing here. We're looking at allowing VASH vouchers. How can we increase housing? Use this as part of the solution in our crisis of housing affordability. Sort of a hybrid approach. Delaware has a gap of housing for all, but most particularly a gap in housing for our most vulnerable, for those who are unable to afford even a subsidized unit and would benefit from the wraparound supports offered here. Some people, when they leave, continue to need those wraparound supports. And how do we be thoughtful about success and making sure the Hope Center's successful in thinking about that future? So we thought it was time to re-engage all of you, our supporters, partners, and clients, and present our draft sustainability plan. The Hope Center Sustainability Plan will provide the future blueprint of this facility. We're also finalizing a comprehensive performance metric database. Ultimately, the success of the Hope Center will be measured in the metrics, in the way that we utilize public resources for public benefit. So we're going to have a metric database so that people can come and analyze and say, okay, what's working and what needs improvement here in the Hope Center. Lastly, I just want to express my deepest gratitude to all of the partners who are here and some who are not here. So many of you came on board with us right away. I'm in my 8th year in my job as county executive, and my mom is always like, Matthew, what have you learned? And what immediately comes to mind is I think of those days during COVID, those difficult days when we had hard decisions. Are we going to go buy a hotel in something that not everyone who is in Newcastle County, not every Delawarean wants me using their taxpayer money to do that? And I thought a lot about that. But one thing I never thought about is that there'd be so many people here today, that there'd be so many people who would come to me, not to say, oh, this is a bad decision, or even that it's a good decision, but would come and say, how can we help? How can we lend a hand to the most vulnerable? Including, I should add, many people who lived in the Hope Center, got out of the Hope Center, and said, how can we help? How can we make sure that what we've been given, we then give to others? So I just want to thank each and every one of you. This has been a tremendously humbling experience for me. It continues to be. And let's work together to make sure that for Delaware, for Newcastle County, this is just the beginning. That we can think bigger about how we protect our most vulnerable. We can think bigger about how we come together to solve all sorts of other problems across our community. Thank you very much.